two, one. Hi, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the long running live stream podcast, whatever, like pandemic theater. That is now in its episode 23. Welcome. I am Heidi MacDonald. I am the editor in chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com, the news site of comics culture.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host producer of the weekly podcast since April 2005 called Comic News Insider. See what we did with our names there to make Comic Beat Insider. There you go. And so you can find us at comicnewsinsider.com for weekly episodes of reviews of comics, TV, film, and interviews and news, etc.
And I'm Therese Lacson. I am the oh my god, I choked on a walnut. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm the entertainment editor at Comics Beat, and I'm also the co-founding editor of Nerdophiles.
Well, we don't want to lose you. It would have been more on an acorn.
I've been snacking on
right?
walnuts.
Yeah, don't eat the acorns.
Yeah.
That acorn bread. Well, this week, every week we've been talking about movies, TV, sometimes comics, and so this podcast has kind of developed into Jimmy and I challenging each other to find the most humiliating movie that the other has not seen. So this week,
I see it a different way. I think there's no shame, but that's okay.
No, I know it's really no shame.
We're just ribbing. We're ribbing.
Yeah, we're ribbing each other. But anyway, this week I introduced myself to a movie that people gasp when they say I haven't seen it. My Neighbor Totoro, by Hayao Miyazaki, probably one of the 10 most beloved animated films of all times worldwide. It is the Wizard of Oz of Japan. I mean, it's the most, classic kid story there. Obviously huge around the world. And guess what? It's a masterpiece.
Yeah.
So
well, don't feel like I was just telling Teresa, and I think I talked to you about this, Heidi, is that somehow I'd never seen any of the studio Ghibli, whichever it is, films ever. I'd heard of them, like I'd heard of Totoro. I'd obviously seen the plush and toys everywhere. Like that's something, and Spirited Away, of course, No Face, things like that. But I didn't know what it was. So when HBO Max had the entire collection, save Grave of the Fireflies, which for some rights reason it's on Hulu instead, I started watching them in order. So I've gotten through to Spirited Away. So I did watch it a few months ago.
So You've never seen them before?
None of them ever.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God.
No, like I watched
What?
it. I know. I watched it for the first time 3 months ago. So the first 11 I watched about 3 months ago. So I rewatched Totoro.
This hurts me.
I know. I don't know how. I don't know how it missed me. Probably because old. But But I watched it again twice, both the original Japanese, which I'd watched it months ago, and I also was curious about the recent translations. I watched it that way as well. So.
The dubs are good. I mean,
yeah,
the official
the new one,
dubs are really good.
Yeah, the new one.
Like
with,
Howl's Moving Castle, that's like Christian Bale as Howl.
Yeah.
Chef's kiss.
So, so Therese, I take it you've seen these films before.
Yeah. I started watching them when I was in high school, I think. I mean, honestly, they're hard to get access to in America, so I don't really blame people for not having seen it. Like we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But I think the first one I ever saw was, it might have been like a Chinese translation of Totoro, actually. But the one I remember is Howl's Moving Castle, and then I watched like Totoro a lot later on, with the English and Japanese versions. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting background to it because it was the second Miyazaki film that he directed for Ghibli, but only the third Ghibli film since they had formed, and such a, my God, and the way they released it was so interesting, as I'm sure you guys found out, you looked up, was like they released it with Grave of the Fireflies as a double feature. And like they showed
a
Grave
choice.
Unbelievable.
So they decided to like do this double feature and release it, and so of course Grave of the Firefly is Isao Takahata's very deep and
if you want to be
sad.
Very sad.
Yes, very sad.
Yeah, Grave of the
his sort of personal reaction to, because they both are in their 70s. They grew up in World War II. They're probably 8-10 years old. So they have visceral feelings about that, obviously, and memories of the bombs dropping and things like that. So that's Grave of the Fireflies. And then afterwards, they would show My Neighbor Totoro, which of course was the opposite. It was sort of like there's hope. There, look at this life. Everybody's
Thank God.
happy. I know.
If they did it the other way around, you would be like,
Oh my God.
mental health,
right.
jeopardy there. So,
everything gets worse. Agree with the Fireflies, but everything gets it's kind of better with some mishaps here and there in My Neighbor Totoro. So yeah.
Well, it's like ultimately happy. I'm like.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So let me, how we talk about our first impressions of films. So I'll go first since this is my week to go.
The newest newbie, yeah.
The newest newbie. So of course, this is one of those films, like so many that we do in this series, where you watch it, you're like, oh, that's where that came from. I mean, how could you not, obviously I know who Totoro was. I've seen the costumes. I've seen the cosplay. I've seen the fan art. I've seen, and Cat Bus I've also seen.
Yes, everywhere.
Yeah, except I did not know that Cat Bus was from this movie, so I learned about that. And just the imagery, the story, so much about it. But watching it last night, I mean, I did keep expecting a dark turn,
Oh yeah, I bet.
Right? Like if you're just watching it, I mean,
like a Bambi moment.
Yeah, right. The Bambi moment. And I mean, I've seen Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, which I'll talk about because it's kind of interesting. Well, how talk about, the development of Miyazaki's films in America. But, I mean, there were, Spirited Away is kind of the flip side, I think, to Totoro, and it's a little darker, but I kept expecting, the dark Bambi turn, and because there's a lot of elements in the film.
They teased it for sure.
They do, and I mean,
like,
and there's of course fan theories that the happy ending is a dream sequence, and I mean we're spoiling. If you haven't seen Totoro, guess what? There was a happy ending. All right.
I mean, it could be all a dream because only the kids can see this, so maybe they all dreamed it. But I don't like to believe that. I don't think it is.
yeah, I don't like to believe that either. But there's certainly a lot of subjects, and also Miyazaki. I mean, this much I do know is that Miyazaki's films are really, like his twin themes are really nature and well, I guess is one thing. The spiritual connection with nature that we have. And
Shinto.
Yes, right. The Shinto, and so nature can be cruel, but not in Totoro, thank goodness. And I mean, I knew this was a great movie. It's a classic. I mean, it's just unbelievably amazing and wonderful, and just so many moments in it that are like, just watching them, you're like, and just touching your heart, and it goes straight to your heart. This film just cuts straight to your heart without stopping for anything.
It's adorable sisters. So as I said, I first watched it probably 3 months ago, and then again I watched it twice this week, Japanese, and then the recent they have just the recent English dub, the 2005 one with the Fanning sisters, who were fantastic because at the time they were 11 and 7 years old, so they were almost the exact age. So
Perfect
they were
age.
fantastic. But of course, the Japanese voiceover actors were probably in their 20s or 30s. They playing the kids, but they were amazing too. Like, my God, little May is like, oh, cute. It's cute little thing, and like the excitement of it. So watching it was like, what struck me was, because again, I was watching these in order, and I don't know if I watched them back to back, which would have been interesting considering that's how they did it. I can't remember if I watched them back to back when I first saw it a few months ago, but it was
Dream of the Fireflies.
And then this and Totoro.
No.
So if so, I remember going into Totoro thinking probably the same thing after seeing Fireflies, and I knew it was a different director. Like, oh no, is there going to be a dark twist or anything like that? But like the hopefulness of it all, and like just the community of everybody like accepting each other. Like, they moved to this little farm community, this family of, there's a dad with 2 young girls, and the mother's in the hospital, which is not explained, but you find out through other things later on that it's actually Miyazaki based it on his mom had TB, had tuberculosis, so that's what the character
Oh no!
must have tuberculosis.
My mom also had TB when she was young.
Oh no, God!
Oh man,
Jesus!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, she survived it, obviously.
You didn't go visit her in the hospital, did you?
Well, she had it when she was 20, in her 20s. So I was born in her 30s. So.
Okay. All right. So yeah.
But yeah, so that was like, but just watching how everyone like sort of comes together and helps out and immediately accepts the family, like the great they say in the Japanese translation she's a nanny, but in English they call her granny. The character, the neighborhood older lady that takes care of them.
Yeah.
She just really embraces and takes care of them. The love of the sisters, the dad who accepts their possible fantastical stories as like, oh yeah, there's wood spirits, yeah, for sure, and let's go pay homage to them at the shrine. And you're like,
I
oh,
think
that's really sweet.
That's in character with like Shinto tradition.
Yes,
like,
it is. Yeah,
like
it's
the
a Shinto
religion
thing. Yeah, yeah, because they have
is like because they go pray at the actual shrines. So
yeah,
I think like
I think
it's
they're
not
called,
outlandish to them.
I think they're called kami. Yeah, where they're like the
Yeah, that's
spirits.
those are like
Yeah,
the spirits. Yeah,
spirits,
the
right?
kami.
So if you
Mhm.
if you come across as a kami, you're supposed to go to the shrine and sort of give thanks and or something like that.
I think that's why I didn't expect it to have like a negative ending, because like there is a lot
okay.
of like the children pay a lot of like homage, or I guess like respect to the spirits, and like the spirits are always there to help them. So I was like, I don't think this is gonna have an unhappy ending, because that would like deter the main point of the story.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
and they don't hide.
They're nice to the earth, and they like respect the earth. If they were like cutting down trees and stuff, then like maybe mom dies. So like,
and they don't hide they don't hide the fact that it's connected, because there's even the point where May comes across a shrine right when they're at the bus stop. You remember she goes and she looks and she sees the Shinto shrine.
Well, every scene,
yeah,
every main scene, they're all sitting, like when May goes like runs off away. She's like sitting next to a shrine when the cat bus comes, and like
that's right. Yeah, they don't.
There's like multiple shrines in the.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So I loved it. I was like, I came out just feeling like, oh my god, this is such a such a fun, happy tale. And to see something I learned watching all the Ghibli films is that I'm not sure if this was before, or definitely before Marvel, was before or after Ferris Bueller, but I'm sure they didn't even think about that. But like the credits are important. The credits tell a story.
Oh yeah.
The credits in almost all of the Ghibli films, the credits continue the story, so you see an even happier ending. The mom comes home, and there's
right.
So that was really lovely too. But my first, I loved it. I came out and like watching it back to back today, the past week, again was just like didn't feel like I was, like I had to watch these again just so I could.
Oh,
it was delightful to watch again. And I could probably do it again right now.
I mean, it is like one of those films that's just just extraordinarily just beautiful. I mean, Miyazaki was a mangaka as well. I mean, he's an artist, and I mean, he's famous for literally hand animating some of the cells of his work. And I mean, if you compare Studio Ghibli to Disney, it really, I mean, I always have compared Miyazaki versus Walt Disney. Okay. Because Walt Disney was absolutely a visionary genius, and he hired the best people to do things, and, has made these touching classics, some of them problematic, but, the Disney films are also like, they go, beloved films. Whereas Miyazaki, it's one man, one vision. Like, I mean, obviously he worked with incredibly talented collaborators, but I mean, he's not afraid to jump in and draw something himself. And there is he did use some computer animation as he got, along in some of his later films, but this one's entirely, traditionally animated, and it's just so handcrafted. Like even the lines in the credits are just like little pen and ink drawings. He uses a dark line around a lot of his figures that give it this really hand-drawn feeling that's just so intimate and touching.
Yeah, which I thought was also obviously I knew a little bit. I don't know much about Miyazaki, but I knew obviously he had a big animation and manga background, and just incredible artist. My God. But I thought was interesting was the famous poster, which I didn't even notice it until I started looking up, is like a picture of one little girl with the umbrella with Totoro, and she's not in the film because they made those posters in those films first, and they liked the look of it, so they kept it. But as they realized, like as the story progressed, I think Miyazaki was like, well, it would make sense to have one little girl playing at home to get to run off to see her dad, to me. So I felt like we had to have another element. So I could sort of split the girl in two, into like two characters. And May was sort of based on his own niece. He said, so they became like the sisters instead, but they had already done the art and they really liked the look of it. So they decided to keep it for the poster, which I was like, well, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Not uncommon.
Wait, Therese, tell us about your discovery of Miyazaki.
So like I said, I'm pretty sure I watched Totoro when I was a child. Like, I think my parents bought like the dub of it, the Chinese dub of it, and when they were in China, like whenever they would go back, because I have like old DVD dubs of like Sailor Moon seasons where it's like in Chinese, so it's like slightly confusing to me because like I do speak Mandarin pretty fluently, but it's like conversational, so sometimes they'll say stuff and I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about right now. But I get the gist, and I think I have a couple other ones, but I think I remember seeing like a DVD of Totoro before we left our house in Phoenix. But when I got a little bit older, when I was in high school, a lot of my high school friends were into Miyazaki, and I actually played the theme of House Moving Castle as like a piano, like as part of my music class thing. I don't even remember. I know I love Joe Hisaishi. He's like one of my favorite composers, and he like consistently collaborates. Like, he's the guy who did the music for Totoro as well.
Yeah, among many other Ghibli films.
Yeah.
Like basically like all of the big ones, like that everybody knows. So he's like, I mean, I don't think I've even seen all of the Studio Ghibli movies. But I mean, they're fantastic, and the themes. I mean, I absolutely love the like thematic elements of all the films, like especially Totoro, which I think is very respectful towards children. I think like a lot of Western films can kind of be condescending towards kids. Even like adults can be condescending towards kids, and like in those films, it's like, oh, well, the kids were right all along. But like in Totoro, it's like there's never any like oh, like, yeah, sure, the spirits, like everybody believes in the spirits, and nobody's doubting what they're saying. And you know, like even when the kids go missing, it's never like, oh, those darn kids. Like, you can kind of understand why like a child would be sad that like, you know, mom's probably gonna die, like I'm gonna run away and give her this corn, like it's the only thing, like it makes sense,
right? Yeah, it's totally what a kid would do.
Right. And I mean, honestly, even that scene when they were like yelling at each other and like May starts crying, I was like, this is the most accurate representation of a child like crying, which is like, ah! Just like screaming like on the street. You're just like, damn, like there's nothing that will comfort that child.
Yeah.
But so I'm a huge fan of his themes. Like, he has a lot of like anti-war themes, which I think is very more obvious in Howl's Moving Castle, which, if you guys can't tell, is my favorite Miyazaki film. I have a very special connection to that movie. But yeah, like themes of nature, especially incorporating like Shinto. I mean, all that stuff was like very interesting to me when I first discovered it, because I'd never had any kind of like connection with that. Like, my family aren't like ancestor worshipers or anything like that. So it was like, oh, like this is a whole new version. Like, I love this. Like, this is like a part of society that like I don't think like Western society has a lot of connection with. So that was really cool. But yeah.
Nice. Yeah. It's just such a lovely, like I said earlier, it's just such a lovely community in the film, you know, like you said, they just immediately believe the kids. They're like, oh yeah, of course they're spirits. Yeah, those are like what do they call them? The dust.
The dust or the gremlins.
Soot gremlins.
Soot gremlins.
Yeah. Susuwatari. Susuwatari is what they're called. Yeah.
And you see them in Spirited Away too.
Yeah, when I watched Spirited Away, I was like, aren't those the same as? I was like, oh yeah, they make the same noise. Yeah, little noise they make. It's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just such a. Like I said, it was just the only little moment that I was like, that annoyed me in the film. One moment was when May was missing and Satsuki is looking, and she runs into that. Like, are they a couple coming from the hospital? They're driving,
and they just
and they're just like, yeah, it's like she's like, have you seen my little sister? Like, oh, like the woman seemed more concerned than the guy, and she was like, oh, my little sister. They're like, okay, good luck, bye.
Yeah, like, hope you find that kid.
Like,
yeah.
Like, here's a 10-year-old little girl on her own, and you're like, where you from? Oh, okay, see ya.
But you know, that's interesting. Actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's like the entire rest of the community is a community, you know, that's just pulling together, and like, you know, we don't know who these two randos.
Yeah, I don't think they're a part of the community.
Yeah,
so
maybe
they were
that
coming
was
from the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I the whole thing seems pretty intentional. From reading.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It seemed. I was just like, well, that's not cool of them.
Well, that's just to show that there are assholes also. So,
fair enough.
but yeah, I mean, from reading about Miyazaki, he does seem very. I mean, his work is incredibly spiritual, and with his Shinto beliefs, as Therese is saying. But like I said, also about nature. But he really, man, he just seems to be. I mean, it's kind of like people in this, like there are the dark things and then the happiness, and it's just all presented as. Why would you question any of this thing as it's happening? It's very. It's very in
just
the
matter
moment.
Of fact, yeah.
It's such a very in the moment. That I would say that's more Zen, which is obviously connected to it, but it's just and then of course they do discover Totoro and which
May discovers
Totoro in this amazing scene. Like that there's
Oh
going
my
to be
God.
magical creatures, and this fits very firmly in the tradition of little girls who find magical world films and movies and books. And the other way I said it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz of Japan in a way.
Yeah.
But and then she finds this nature spirit, and the scene where she meets Totoro. So.
And it's such a cute, like kids do that. Kids explore. Kids will go off and like, what's this? What's it? I'm not sure how. I probably would have like ran after those things too. I don't know how I would have reacted to a giant furry creature, but at the same time, it's like kids are so like just inquisitive and they're
so cute
and they're fearless. Yeah, and they're just like, oh, look at this big adorable fluffy bunny type thing. I'm gonna hang out with him.
He's kind of scary. Like when he roars, I would have. I mean, like Teresa's
I
a
might have
child.
ran.
I was a coward, so I would have been like, "Oh no! Like this is more than I expected." But
May is fearless.
So
she's
cute.
She just like laughs. Like she's like her little laugh. She gets so excited with him. It's so cute. She's
I know.
Like,
and then they compare, how they yawn. I mean, so I've only seen the U.S. dub. Which was the 2000
the Fanning sisters.
The Fanning sisters, and it's the great Frank Welker.
Yes, my God.
Right. Okay. So Frank Welker, if you don't know, is like the all-time great animation voices, but he does specialize in doing sounds.
Yeah.
And like characters who don't speak. So, like he does all the monkey characters. He's famous for doing monkey characters.
He can do machine noises. He can do anything. That dude's brilliant.
And again, I haven't seen the Japanese version yet, but I will say it's an amazing job making the sounds, the growls for Totoro, and just how they how they bond. And it's part of, again, you see in this scene, like May just accepts this so completely. Like she just has there's no boundaries for her with this world. She doesn't question it. And neither does Totoro.
Even with Satsuki, she there's not as much doubt as you would expect from, an older sister character to kind of be like, oh, kind of, if I was watching this for the first time, I think I was kind of expecting her to be kind of mean to her sister, and there's never that point. But I think when they're talking to her mom, when the parents are talking to each other, the mom is like, oh, I think Satsuki has had to grow up too fast, and you can kind of see that in moments where she feels like the adult, but she never loses. Like when they lose May, she's like, when they meet Totoro for the first time, she's just like, oh my God, I got to see him. Even writing her letters to her mom, she's like, I want to get to see him. It's not like, oh, May believes in this thing and I don't. She hasn't reached that point of trying to be cool. She's like, I want to get to meet the spirit. I didn't get to meet the spirit.
Right.
So that was very heartwarming to me, because I'm like, oh, they're like nice sisters. They don't hate each other, and they're not yelling at each other all the time.
Well, like you just said, I think because the mom's in the hospital, Satsuki is expected and it takes it upon herself to take care of May. So there's all this almost motherly love, sisterly love, obviously, but she almost acts like her mother a lot of times too. And it was so delightful, like you said, to see their relationship, that they clearly loved each other and were so close.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about Dad, though. I mean, Dad it is unconditional love for Dad. And I mean, obviously Mom's in the tuberculosis sanitarium. Yeah. So
and he has to work full time.
But I mean, but this was kind of a little bit of me thinking, it's like, wow, Dad, you just moved your girls to this dilapidated house, and where they're shaking the you
Oh
know,
my God.
the pillar and saying, "Oh, look,
haunted.
it's rotten. It's haunted." It's a little bit not, you know, a little bit unsafe there, Dad. And then I think there are some criticisms of the films, like, you know, for our Western sensibilities, like, man, these kids are running wild. Like, you're, you know, hey, where's
Ran wild. What are you talking? I was a latchkey kid.
Where's our 4-year-old little girl? Hey, where did that 4-year-old go? You know, in the wilderness. She's missing. Whatever. She'll come home.
We were all allowed
when they just walk away, and I'm like, oh,
we did that. That's the thing. Like, after we got home from school, I have an older brother, you know, that I grew up with, 3.5 years older. And we got home from school. We would walk. It was close enough, or whichever, take the bus. And we were just like, when we got home, my routine was, I'm gonna have a little can of ravioli. I'm gonna go get on my bike, meet my friends. We bike around, and then when Mom yells dinner at like 6 o'clock, and that's what you would hear around the neighborhood. Dinner again, mothers screaming for their kids, and that's when you came home.
So cool.
That's exactly what I mean. That's what we did, and everybody, and so many people I know grew up that way. We would climb. I remember us having. My mom had a lot of friends, and they had this one friend that had apt to this, a giant tree in their backyard. I'm talking huge. We would climb that tree to see how high we could get. The parents were drinking and hanging out. Any of us could have fallen to our death, but they were just like, it was. I'm not lying how high it was, and we would just climb up there. And I was a big climber. I loved it, and of course we tried to be as careful as can. But kids are kids. Probably one of us fell here and there, but it didn't stop us from doing it again. It didn't stop the parents from like never climb that tree again. We were allowed to be kids.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about this movie. It's like, yes, of course, it's a community. They're clearly already close with the nanny granny who's helping to watch them. And the community is very, you know, they're going to look out for each other. They know the kids will probably be most likely safe. But also, they're kids, especially it's set in the 50s. That's what the kids would have done.
Well,
oh, yeah.
It's interesting because, like, when you compare the two daughters to the neighbor kid, I can't remember his name. I think it's like Kanta. Yeah, like he was like, you see him like working a lot more.
Yeah.
Like when you first meet him, he's helping to till the field. And you also like when they're talking about like when they go visit the mom is like, oh, like why aren't you at school? And she's like, oh, it's a rice planting day. So like it's assumed that like all the kids are like helping with the field, which is what I would expect from like you know, like small like family farms.
Yeah, it's a farming community, yeah, for sure.
So I would just assume that maybe that's like expected, like, oh, kids are, you know, like expected to do more farm work there. But because the dad is like a professor, it's kind of like, oh, like somebody's got to go watch the kids. Like the local like old lady is gonna like, that was like pretty common. I feel like in Asian countries is just to have like the local old lady like take care of the kids. You know, like it's like, oh, well, she's, you know, she's raised families. Like she'll take care of the children.
Right.
And like
and she's happy to do it. Yeah.
That, like, people don't have. Yeah.
And she loves it.
Even the dad, like. There are moments where I was like, honestly, like, I don't know if I would be able to like bike all that way and then also carry two daughters. Like that, like immediately, like my back hurts just thinking.
I know, right? Yeah, he's active. He's you know, he's obviously cares about these girls, his whole family very much. You know, that is I try to go into films knowing as little about them as possible. So although obviously by osmosis I knew a lot about Totoro, but that it's set in 1958. So this is post.
Well, that's it's kind of ambiguous. They say at one point you think it's 55. It's possibly 50. Possibly 53.
But it was in the late 50s. So probably, you know, like about 10 years after the close of World War II. And I mean, it's very accurate to the situation then. I mean, Japan was recovering. And like you were saying, Therese, it's like, you know, the kids worked. The kids, you know, family farms. This is rural life. You know, there's a lot of the imagery that is very familiar to me from a lot of Gekika comics, you know, manga, which is the realism, the realist movement that came into comics into manga in like the late 60s and 70s. And I mean, we do, you know, Miyazaki is a very big manga fan. I mean, of course, he made manga himself in Nausicaa of the Valley Wind, started out as a manga. He's actually doing it now. He draws manga himself. So it's pretty sure that he was, you know, influenced and familiar. He had to be familiar with this stuff. And I think it's really just that it covers the same territory as his films, like the Gekika is covering the same thing. There's the artist Yoshihiro Suga, who his work, he's a very famous manga artist, whose work is being republished right now in English by Drawn and Quarterly. We saw him in Angoulême this year, actually. But anyway, his work is a lot of the same things. It's like rural Japan. It's more realism. There is no magic Totoro or cat bus that's helping you in his work, So it's kind of interesting to see this very, quotidian, and it was hard. I mean, it was a struggle. I think it does come across that life isn't as easy as you might hope in this time period, as it's post-war recovery. And there's a lot of Japanese art that obviously it's a very important period in their history that deals with it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think.
Well, even
go ahead, Teresa.
I was just going to reference like another point in the movie when May goes missing, or when they get that telegram about the bond.
Oh yeah, a telegram.
Ooh.
I know. First the telegram, but then also like the fact that there's like only like one uncle has the phone. He's like, okay, well, like you got to rush over there, and like that's the only phone available, and so she like has to make like a long distance call, which is like I don't think I've heard the words long distance call.
I know, right?
Will you accept this call?
Like,
yes.
I know. I was like, who's paying for this call? But I guess like that's not an issue.
Right.
But that is like I was like, oh, this is definitely set in a different time period. Like if like nothing told you that, like the telegram and the like long distance phone call, and the way the phone is like the old like receiver. I mean, I've never like used a phone like that, but it's very like set in a different time.
Yeah.
Well, I think also going on what Heidi says with the art is that, and we'll get into Disney stuff later, but clearly I don't think Miyazaki also doesn't hide that he was influenced by Disney as well, because in this film alone, there's like kind of a little Mary Poppins action. There's definitely some Alice in Wonderland action, he's influenced by other sort of, fantastical and fantasy stories out there. That people, especially Alice in Wonderland, obviously falling down the rabbit hole. And then with the people always say like the cat bus kind of has that Cheshire cat look to it.
And
so
it disappears.
Exactly. That's it.
Right.
It disappears. So
they all kind of like disappear.
Yeah, it's a very Alice in Wonderland type thing, and like I said, I don't think he hid that at all. It's just sort of his interpretation.
Yeah. Well, he was very well. I say was. I mean, Miyazaki's very much alive and well, and I mean, he made a movie a couple years ago. Like I said, he's still drawing, and he's
in his 70s, still kicking.
He's got one in production right now.
Right. He said he retired, but of course, anyone that amazing and creative is never going to retire. So, but I mean, he's very familiar, obviously, with Western canon.
Sure,
and different cultures. It's very interesting that as he was a young animator, one of the films that he wanted to do was an adaptation of a comic by Richard Corben, like Growl or something. Yeah, I was reading this. Yeah, in his Wikipedia page. Now, Richard Corben, for people.
I love Richard Corben.
Okay, so all right. Now
I love his art. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's another old dude. He's probably the same age as Miyazaki. So, but basically, he was a very influential artist in the 70s. He was a part of heavy metal. Now I'm not sure. He might have predated it, but he did all these underground comics. His style is kind of like Frazetta with a little bit. If Frazetta and Crumb had a child, it would probably be Corben, right?
Very good. Yes.
Yeah. See?
Yeah, very good.
Oh yeah. Know my comics history in the 70s. And Corben's work, he's loved in France. In fact, last year or a couple years ago at Angoulême, he was given the Grand Prix. Only 3 American cartoonists have ever been given the Grand Prix. I think it's like Spiegelman, Watterson, and Richard Corben. Now, no American comics fan would put Corben on the list, but he's revered around the world. And and here's the kicker: is that they couldn't agree to a deal. Like maybe he was holding out or whatever, didn't want to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this happened a long time ago in the 80s.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm guessing like Therese, you're not a big comics fan. I mean, but you probably never heard of Richard.
I don't know about like the 70s.
Right. Okay.
I just have to look him up, but I do see the Grand Prix like 2018.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I wouldn't expect people, to like. He's not incredibly on the tip of the tongue of contemporary comics readers. But I'm like, if he had
some stuff here and there,
But if he had done this deal with Miyazaki, and Miyazaki had made a
he might have,
on his work, I'm just saying he would have more of a footprint than he does, just because.
I wonder what made the deal fall through, because I feel like I don't know how like strict Corben was to his own, like vision, because I feel like Miyazaki has his own, because we were talking a little bit before about his like Earthsea film, and like I feel like that was like Ursula K. Le Guin even said like, this is your movie, but this is not, this is not really my story. This is your version of it, which is like a kind way of saying, I feel like a very understanding way of saying like, this isn't exactly a good, a direct adaptation. Yeah. But it is like an interpretation. So I wonder if it was kind of like Miyazaki had his vision, and it was very, they're both sides maybe a little bit stubborn about compromise. I don't know.
Which we know Miyazaki, thankfully, can be, because of course, when they tried to like distribute it over here to the States, he was like, no cuts.
Well, we need
and
to talk.
He insisted on
the sword.
Yeah.
He's like, oh my gosh.
He even insisted on that the name stay the same. The only thing
I want to talk a lot about that.
The only thing that changed was the Kappas changed from whatever. But
just as far as this Corben Miyazaki connection goes, I'd never heard of this before, and there's some famous what if collaborations, like Kirby was working on that. That was a fake thing for Argo, but Salvador Dali and Disney almost did a thing together. And there's that little tiny test, and there's obviously
Duran and AC/DC.
Yeah, no. Jodorowsky's Dune with all the Mobius stuff. And so these collaborations that almost happened. So now I'm obsessed with finding out what happened with this back in the day.
Nice.
It's just so it's just so intriguing. But so talk some more about the film and how amazing it is. But as amazing as his oeuvre is, it's had such a hard time finding purchase in the United States up until now. Now with streaming, although. Yeah. Heidi's obligatory every week on Comic Beat Insider. I complain. It is day 120 of me not getting HBO Max on my Roku. Okay, and so all the films are on HBO Max. I had to watch it on my computer, so I'm looking forward to watching it on my larger TV at some day. Thank you. But anyway,
I had to boot up my PS4 for this one, so I was a little annoyed too. But I feel like that's a privileged way of like, I do have a way to put it on my.
Yeah, I have a PS3, so I can't even boot that up. I need to invest.
Or you can get a little USB connect from your computer to your TV, maybe even.
Yeah, you could Chromecast maybe
something like that.
Oh, I could, but I maybe I will as time goes by. We'll see. Or maybe for the rest of this series, I'll
might have to give in.
Might have to give in and get a Chromecast. But now I think with HBO, now with the streaming wars, I think these films have found a home where they will be accessible for a long time. But it hasn't always been that way. And back now, Spirited Away. Oh, let me back up. So the first Miyazaki film I saw was Princess Mononoke, and this was
a great movie.
A great movie. Now, unmentioned in any of the materials that I read about this is that when it came out, it was, Harvey Weinstein. So boo hiss. But it was from Miramax, and they had hired Neil Gaiman to do the English script for it. When this was one of the first things that.
Oh yes, I remember. Yeah.
Right, and this is one of the first kind of multimedia things that Neil did, so it's kind of a big deal for him at that point that he was getting to do this job. But now it's not even on his resume, so anyway, so I got to see it at this screening at Lincoln Center, which sounds really cool. But it has a tiny screen. It's
I've been to this.
Right? Yeah. When you hear you're going to Walter Reed, you think it's awesome, but there's actually like a screen that's probably no bigger than my living room. And
so it was art house screens. Yeah.
It was so tiny, and so I didn't. And I said Mononoke. I don't think Princess Mononoke is as much of a favorite film for a lot of people.
What?
I don't know.
I mean,
I've always wanted to ride a giant wolf through the forest.
Everybody does too, but it's a little, I don't know, it's a little darker, I think, a little darker.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was huge problems. Like Harvey Weinstein wanted to cut it, like he always does.
Yeah, Harvey Scissorhands, they call him.
Yeah, Harvey Scissorhands.
That name.
And Miyazaki said no.
Yeah,
you
like,
cannot. No cuts. And perhaps because of this, it opened, it fizzled very fast. It fizzled in the United States. And and then I was sort of like, it hadn't been the best experience seeing it on the screen, to be honest. And so I wasn't like racing out. But then Spirited Away came out, which if you'd asked me, I would have said, oh yeah, that was 10 years ago. It was almost 20 years ago. Okay. And it came out.
Everything feels like 10 years ago.
Right? It does. Right? Yes. Like, thank you for saying that, because it really does. And obviously, Disney had now made this deal with the Studio Ghibli to have their films, but it was a relationship that never really gelled. And I sent around an article that was about this, but apparently when Spirited Away opened, it opened on like 6 screens or something ridiculous like that. Yeah. Like, come on, people. Come on, Disney. I mean, you're just trying to bury your competitor. I mean, that's what happened.
It really sucks. It's like, it's such... Because it was already like, it had gotten such, I think, underground word of mouth is why they probably, and like it was winning all these awards. And obviously, Spirited Away was like one of the number one film for quite a few of these films were like the number one film in Japan for a while.
Isn't it still like the most top grossing film?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's like the Titanic.
I think it was in that article. I was like, oh my god.
I think it's like Spirited Away is either the top or it's number 2 or 3 behind these like other, like just wildly popular films, but that aren't Studio Ghibli. But it's like, yeah, it's up there for sure. But all of them have done really well, except for this, Totoro didn't do that great at the box office initially, and then it said like when they aired
that was a lot earlier on.
Because like I said, it was like their third. Yeah, it was like their third film. Yeah. So they said once they put it on TV though, it gained all this audience, and that sort of gave rise to its popularity. After they aired it on TV, like, I don't know, several months later or something like that, or a year later in Japan.
I mean, looking at the filmography of Miyazaki, like from, the 70s to the 90s, pretty much like Totoro was the main like film. Like I think out of his grouping of films at that time, like maybe Kiki's Delivery Service might be like closer up to the top. But like, I hadn't heard of like Nausicaa until like a lot later, like, and I didn't realize like that was, or like Castle in the Sky was like before Howl's Moving Castle. Like that's just like, it's like all these things that was it not Castle in the
Sky was the first Ghibli film, 86. Right. Yeah,
I guess that's the that wasn't through Ghibli, it was through something like a different other production company.
Wait, he was
Nausicaa was Nausicaa was different.
No, Castle of Cagliostro.
Yeah. I don't know that one. Yeah.
That was his like first. At least on, on Wikipedia, as I've been told.
Okay.
But it wasn't through Studio Ghibli. It was through Tokyo Movie Shinsa.
I see. Yeah, I read that like they you could almost consider his
Nausicaa is like the first.
That's almost the first, but not really because they hadn't really formed it yet. But Castle in the Sky is the official first, in 86.
And he did do Nausicaa, as we said before. He did Nausicaa as a manga before that, and I have a collected edition of it sitting right over here in my
I've never read or
pile of books.
Yeah.
I've never read or seen
it's surprisingly it's beautiful.
Is it on? Is it also on HBO? That would be part of the Ghibli collection, but is it on HBO Max or somewhere?
I'm not sure.
I would love to see
I don't know. I don't think it is actually.
Yeah, I think it probably.
I feel like I didn't see it last night when I was looking through all the.
84. Oh, it says HBO Max. It might. Oh, okay.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
Fire up that. Yes.
Sorry,
yes.
Heidi, but that's next to watch, I guess. All right. I know. I'll hold the phone up to it while I'm watching it and turn the sound up really loud. You can watch it.
So anyway, so Disney acquired this library of amazing masterpieces, and then to their credit, like they did these dubs that we're talking about that are really good, like this dub,
like star-studded.
Yeah, star-studded, and it's just pitch perfect. I mean, the Fanning sisters are just pitch perfect.
They're really good.
They're wow. I mean, I've always thought Dakota Fanning was eerily good as a child. I mean, she really is like
they both are really good, but
eerily good.
Especially as a kid, she was amazing.
Yeah.
Well, they were so young, and they portrayed. I mean, it's so kid actors when you meet like a good kid actor, it's kind of like equally kind of scary because you're like, how were you able to like?
I used to
get to this level.
I used to teach. I used to be an actor, as a lot of people know. I used to teach acting when I was young. I taught young kids, and I remember having a couple kids where I was like, "Holy shit, you're 10? How do you know this? How do you speak this way? How are you that?" So it's like, I get it, but at the same time, you're just impressed. You're like, Jesus,
it's eerie. It is eerie.
It's eerie, but it's impressive. Like, all right, but it was great because they were like close to the age of the other. Like, I think
they're sisters too.
And May is 4, and then in real life when they shot, it was like 11 and 7, still pretty close.
It's so perfect, yeah.
And they had Tim Daly was the dad, and then
Leah
Salonga.
He's great too.
Leah Salonga is the mom, who is, as a Filipino, she is the queen of the Philippines to me, of course.
Well, I was watching, I was like, Leah Salonga, who is she in this?
And then also they missed a trick on that. Like, you have Leah Salonga right there, yet you have someone named Sonia Isaacs singing the English version of the songs. It's like, Leah's right there. Hire her. Let her sing those songs.
Oh, she probably was some kind of Disney ingenue. They wanted to give a,
I was going to say, maybe she was outside of the budget to,
to have her sing. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because this girl is lovely who sings it, but I'd never heard her. I looked her up. Sonia Isaacs. She's like some country western Christian singer with no no really big hits. It's not even on her Wikipedia page. It's on the Studio Ghibli. Like, I went to her Wikipedia page. It doesn't mention this at all. I'm like, well, that's weird. But it's like, but yeah, that's apparently like to us probably the biggest thing she ever did. But I was like, just get Leah to sing just a note, something.
Yeah, but so again, this is the only one I've watched thus far. But you were saying Alice in Wonderland Castle is also great. I mean, all of these Disney dubs are really good, right?
Well, we were talking about Earthsea. Timothy Dalton voices Ged in it.
Oh, Timothy Dalton is Ged? Okay, but sure.
It is.
There's great voiceover. Yeah, that's why I'm watching them both in Japanese and in English. That's why I'm glad that HBO Max has the option to watch them both ways. But yeah,
you can switch it to the
HBO Max.
Oh, you see,
that's what I did. I watched the Japanese first. Yeah.
If you have a device that's supported, the sky's
no on HBO Max. You can, it has the option of watching it either way.
All right. So all right.
But one last. Actually, we forgot to mention. In the dub is Pat Carroll, who of course was famously the voice of Ursula in Little Mermaid. She's the nanny granny.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and that's I mean, also doesn't sing a note, but
she's great. She's great.
Amazing,
I mean, no, the voice is it's done with whoever oversaw making these versions really cared about the source material. I mean, maybe worked with Miyazaki on it as well, but I mean, they really had respect and love because it's just even watching it in the English version, it's just perfect. It's perfect. Nothing is. Yeah.
Miyazaki insisted, of course, it'd be as close to the Japanese as possible. The only little falter they had, I was reading up on and watching the difference, you could see it, is the name, how they come with the name Totoro. It's like it's in the Japanese version, May mistakes the word troll, which is like Totoro or Totoro or something like that. It's something close to it. So she calls him Totoro, thinking that means troll, and then they just kind of all go, "Oh, he's Totoro. That's May's little name for him. We'll call him Totoro." But in the English dub, you hear Welker almost sounds like he's saying
Totoro,
but it's not in the Japanese version. It's just him growling, just going. So I guess they tried to dumb it down a little for the English version. Yeah,
he did. When I was watching that, I was like, I don't remember him saying his own name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I must have watched the Japanese version.
Yeah, the original Japanese version is just
like when I was in high school, because I was like, when does he say Totoro? I had to look it up. I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was interesting because I guess they talked about the Three Billy Goats Gruff. That's classic children's story. And the Troll Under the Bridge is when they first mentioned is where May hears the word. And then as you notice in the credits, when the mom is back home, what book is she reading to them? Three Billy Goats Gruff. It's like, oh my god, so layered. It's so good. Like every
The
little bit
deaths.
was like
Just perfect. Just
man,
perfect.
amazing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Really great stuff. Really
So,
great stuff.
but yeah, so, all praise in the world to making these really, careful and respectful dubs.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, I don't know if somebody in the marketing department or, Disney, look, as I've said on here many times, I mean, Jimmy used to be an actor. I used to work for Disney and for 9 years. So, and, I worked a lot with the animation department on some comics stuff. And, I think there's a culture clash. I mean, it's interesting now that Disney has acquired Star Wars and acquired Marvel, so they own it all, and they've given both, and Pixar too, but they've given Pixar and Disney pretty much free reign to be Pixar and Disney, or Pixar and Marvel. Pardon me. Right. They know that Pixar and Marvel are very successful. Star Wars. I feel like the jury's out on Star Wars. Like. Oof.
Honestly,
it's a whole other podcast.
There's still like a tone shift,
Yeah.
And, watching like even Marvel films, I'm like, this is definitely a Disney Marvel film. Like this is even like I love all movies, but I still have that vibe where I'm like, yeah, it feels like at some point like a Disney hand came in.
Yeah,
well, I get the ultimate say. Okay. I mean that's fair, but I do kind of feel like gross whenever I think about Disney. Like,
fair enough. I mean, not unjustified.
Like nowadays,
not unjustified at all. Yeah.
I love the Disney Renaissance. Like that was like like my childhood, along with many other people's childhoods.
I grew up in Florida. We went to Disney once a year. Oh my God, I was a Disney kid. I love it. But I understand what you're saying.
I've never been to Disney World, but I've been to Disney World.
Oh, well, you haven't been indoctrinated then. That's Disney what the difference is.
I was definitely indoctrinated. Like our high school had this grad night where they sent seniors from like apparently around the country would come because we saw them there like for like 3 weeks in the summer. Just high school students would go. It would just be open to them for what is called grad night. You would hang out. Bands would play. Like I think our headliner band was Wang Chung.
Oh my God! Everybody Wang Chung that night.
But Bobby Brown was there and Ready for the World and all these other like Glass Tiger.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I was definitely a Disney kid. I loved like all the Disney movies, and as Therese just saying, the Renaissance with the musicals, which I would love to do one time, is with Beauty and the Beast and all the Howard Ashman's, Little Mermaid, obviously, like that. Which watched that Howard Ashman documentary on Disney. It's awesome. It's the guy who did Little Mermaid and Beauty.
Which one is it?
It's just I think it's just called Howard.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's great. But, but seeing Disney now as this giant corporate giant does leave a little weird taste in your mouth.
So
I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's questionable. Like I don't know. Sometimes when I look at it, I'm like, I don't think I'm just generally not a fan of like giant conglomerates just eating up.
Yeah,
it's like I do think like it benefits them because like especially like Marvel, it gives them a lot of like money to kind of do what they want, and like it brings in a lot of talent that they might not have been able to get before. But there is like a feeling about it. So I'm glad,
I understand.
I'm glad Miyazaki did not like bend.
Well, he didn't. Miyazaki was a pill that Disney could not swallow. Okay, exactly. Thank God, because truly, because I just again, I mean, there was an article that was about the difficult relationship that they had, and I think it was pretty long. I don't know if we all had time to read it in depth, and
skimmed it a little.
Yeah, skimmed.
I'm not normally a skimmer. You know that.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. I did this. I'm a last minuter, and this is to our detriment. Next time we'll plan better. But
I did see the Lasseter connection thing.
Miyazaki and Lasseter were best buds, and now John Lasseter, but okay, he's a great filmmaker. And I remember when Miyazaki came to Comic-Con in 2009. Him and Lasseter did a panel together, and I remember that I was able to peek in on. It was in Hall H, but I somehow peeked in on the panel. Like it was the last panel of the day, and sometimes you can get into the panel room at the end of the day at Hall H. So that's pretty amazing, And they're good friends. And Lasseter had seen, I think even before Totoro, I think he'd seen.
Nausicaa, probably. Castle in the Sky.
Castle in the Sky, and been like, oh my God, this is the greatest. Everybody at Pixar needs to watch this. And, I mean, game knows game. So He was very instrumental in making Miyazaki's work more aware. And, on the surface, it seemed like this is going to be great. Disney loves family films, and Miyazaki makes some of the greatest family films. But it was obvious that Miyazaki is a true auteur who will not compromise. He does not compromise, thank God.
Yeah.
And he does not need to compromise because his vision is so complete. And like I said, like Spirited Away opened on like 6 screens or something.
Yeah.
But then it won the second ever animated feature Oscar.
Amazing.
And then I think
deserved.
Very deserved. I think that more than anything kind of put Miyazaki a little bit more on the mainstream radar of people, and a little bit away from the otaku kind of fan world.
Well, just the influence alone of the Ghibli films, and it had also just a Totoro itself has been, speaking of Pixar, appears in Toy Story 3. And also, fun little fact is like May
doll in the background.
Yeah, little doll. Yeah, May, who Miyazaki based on his niece, is married to one of the big guys at Pixar who worked on that film. This Japanese guy, I don't know his name.
Oh, in real life?
Yeah, real life.
His
Miyazaki's real life niece is married to a Japanese guy that works for Pixar who worked on Toy Story 3, which is probably why Totoro got in there. But it's also been in like an episode of The Simpsons. Did this whole thing where you see where like Homer gets drunk and he starts seeing things as Ghibli kids.
Yeah.
Even like instead of the cat bus, it's the auto bus, which is awesome. There's a whole thing in South Park. Is a little thing. Bob's Burger had a thing, which I watched again recently, where
where they do the dancing ritual.
And We Bare Bears. I love We Bare Bears, and they did it sort of an homage to it. Even Powerpuff Girls did. I mean, it's been so. There was even like a design Disney park ride at one point. I'm not sure if it was just for Disney Tokyo or not. That based on Tokyo, but it never happened. There was a World's Fair years ago where they recreated Satsuko and Mei's house. That's still there. You can visit. I saw that. There's a Ghibli museum in Japan, which I would love to go to one day. I mean, my God, it's been in. And of course, Totoro's even appeared in some other Ghibli films. Like you see him in little places in the background here and there.
Yeah. Well, Totoro is their totem. I mean, he's the logo for the company.
Yeah, he's Winnie the Pooh. He's Mouse,
Winnie the Pooh. And just, again, 100% invented by Miyazaki, designed by Miyazaki. He takes some aspects of certain spirits. Obviously, there's a cat influence. There is the raccoon bear.
It's and also there's I feel like there's a fox influence too, because that's the first kami that they see when they at one of the shrines. In the first scene, I was like, oh, I wonder if there's more of a fox influence with the way the ears are.
Yeah, because the fox is a big kami thing, right? I was reading on about where it's really sort of well respected and sort of something. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
But I do wonder how much of the discussions with Disney and the cuts that they wanted to make were because of seeing it through a Western influence instead of through
that makes sense.
A Japanese eye, because there are moments when I watch these movies and I'm like, this is a very Asian movie.
Oh, you mean the naked dad bath?
Oh yeah, well that was very even when I'm watching it now, I'm like,
I don't know. I took baths when I was a kid with my granny, my grandmother. I remember that. I don't think it's uncommon.
No, it's not. I mean,
do you think even thematically, I feel like there might have been some we were talking about Harvey Weinstein wanting to cut a lot of the films. I don't know which one it was that they were talking about specifically, but I do wonder how much of it is just oh, I don't get it. I'm a white man. I don't super understand what's going on here. So we're just gonna cut this out. And I'm
that makes total sense.
I mean, I'm sure the Japanese team was well, it's kind of crucial to the story.
Yeah,
but okay.
And maybe read up on it and educate yourself. How about that, Harvey?
Well, he did a lot of other questionable things. That
exactly.
I'm sure.
Yes, for sure. Which is of course. Did anybody? It's not available anywhere. But do you know of the little mini sequel, May and the Kitten Bus? It's a short sequel they made, 13 minutes long. Yeah. So the reason it's not anywhere, it's called May and the Kitten Bus. And it's a short sequel where she goes on an adventure. She meets basically the spawn of the cat bus. It's tiny, and they run into other cat creatures. There's a cat. There's a cat train. There's a cat. I think there's a cat bus, another cat bus.
Wouldn't befriend all of these vehicles.
Oh, no.
Yeah, all these cat vehicle hybrids, basically. So, but it was only shown at like, I think at the museum off and on, and then one time I think in theaters. That's why, but they didn't release it anywhere else. So that's why I didn't go to the deep dark places of the web, but I was searching all through YouTube. It took like 30 minutes, like typing in different things. It's got to be on here somewhere. And there was like a little like screenshot.
Right, like somebody's got to get like have a.
Oh yeah,
I don't know, some kind of version, like a bootleg version.
I know.
Oh, for sure.
I want to find it. I'm gonna find it somehow. But in the 30 minutes or hour it took me, I was like looking all over YouTube.
Wow.
I couldn't really find.
I didn't even know that existed.
I get very dogged about my searches, and I'm like, I didn't go too deep.
Well, you got to go to that dark web.
I know.
The shadow, the dust gremlins.
I try to avoid that side, but yeah.
Yeah, Spirited Away, Jimmy.
Exactly. Yeah, maybe that's where it is. But so that would be, I just imagine, like just the stills I've seen of it.
I wonder how many
adorable
like that they have that they should. I mean, they should just release like all of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you would get. They would.
I don't know why they don't release it. Yeah.
Well, Miyazaki's a perfectionist. Also, I think I mentioned earlier that he was very influenced by Osamu Tezuka, one of my favorite cartoonists. But that got hugely the Walt Disney of Japan, who influenced manga and anime so much. But at one point, Miyazaki looked at his drawings and realized they were too reminiscent of Tezuka, and he went and burned them all. He said he need to break brave from the master. So I think for some of these things, I haven't really read widely in Miyazaki, and I mean there's a lot to read about him, but I just even the most cursory.
Oh well, and just like that, I found it. It's on Daily Motion, but it's like a really bad. Somebody clearly is using their camera phone in a theater.
Oh wow!
So you can see heads in front of you, but you can watch it.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Well, I might go to the dark web, and I'm not afraid. I am like Janet Pym going into the quantum realm. I'm going into that quantum realm with
I don't want any sort of numbered Chan groups. I don't want to go into those. But I think also in this, I think Miyazaki even voiced maybe Totoro in this sequel or something like that.
Yes, he did. He voiced
did something for the short. Is what I'm saying.
Well,
so maybe he did that. Yeah, I think he did something like that.
Wow. Well, something that's not really available on the internet or available on HBO Max or Netflix or Disney Plus. That's pretty amazing. So hail to the kitten bus. Something to look for in life. Something to seek out.
Another thing about we're talking about how it's so influenced people, like you see it everywhere. Even before I knew what Totoro was, I used to see this John, like, what is that? And like I never really knew what it was. I think I sent you a link yesterday.
The grandparents.
The Japanese grandparents. This is from August, recently happened. These 70-something-year-old grandparents created a life-size Totoro from like brick and wood and wire, and they put next to a bus stop for their little grandkids.
No,
and it's so adorable. I'll send you the link, Therese. It's so adorable. Like they spent like they're in their 70s and they're like building this big thing and they put it in the bus so like anyone could stand next to it and like hang out.
No.
And it's so sweet. And there's then I saw that link to other articles of like other little like all over Japan. There's little spots and they say even like bootleg cat buses around Japan that are like not officially licensed, where people just painted them that way. And like clearly the cat bus, they had to call it something else so they get sued. But it's such a giant influence, this film. Like it's everywhere you see it.
Yeah.
Now that I've seen it, I notice it more, obviously.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think I compared it a little bit to the Wizard of Oz, just in that it's some imagery and some stories that are just constantly referenced. And like the Wizard of Oz film, beloved classic, and also weird conspiracy theories, like
is he the Angel of Death?
Yes, the Angel of Death. And
which Ghibli says no.
Yeah, right. Well, there were so many conspiracy theories.
Is he the Angel of Death like Totoro?
That's a big theory, yeah. But Miyazaki was like, no.
No.
Well, that sounds like a cold take, sir.
Right. So, but but I mean, there is. So, one of the things that happens in the film, and just to talk about the movie again briefly, it's like one of the things about it that just touched me so much was how it has this incredibly optimistic and sunny and cheerful outlook, the girls who are laughing and it's genuine and everything. But when it goes dark, it's just as genuine, like you see how the girls are sad, and it just, we see Satsuki just lying on the floor. It's just this take of her lying on the floor, and it's heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, after they hear about their mom.
Right. And then May goes missing, and again there's this search, and then Granny blurts out like, well, we found a sandal in the pond.
Oh my God.
And it's like, it looks like May's sandal, and you're like, oh yeah, because
you're like, no,
you're just like, yeah, something dark, something bad's got to happen, something bad has got to happen in this movie. And like we see Sasuke, she's just kind of heartbroken and like devastated herself, and she comes up, thinks it's her fault, and like it's a sandal. But I mean, I thought it was May's sandal. I mean, it looks a lot like May's sandal.
Well, you see, there's like shots of her putting on the shoes, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then they show it, you're like, oh my God, like, is the shoe like...
Yeah.
But
anyway,
that was such a great moment too, where like you see when they have their little fight, where Sasuke just had it, like, May, stop being so selfish, blah, 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 and runs off, and May cries. But then, what a beautiful shot they made of May witnesses Satsuke breaking down to Nanny, and I think May realizes like, oh, like she feels, not that she didn't think that she felt the same way, but she always looked at her older sister.
That just made her more determined to be like, well, I can fix this too.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That's very like,
what
that's what
a great
I liked
shot.
about it, because it was like very like kids like, oh, like I can, like there's something that I can do. And
yeah, like now it's my turn to take care of my sister. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like such a great. Oh my! Why she maybe runs off? It's like, oh my God. And another little connection, like when she runs off, like the goat is really at her. Maybe a little maybe another 3 Billy Goats Gruff thing. They're just throwing that stuff in there. It's like they're just throwing all that. I love that.
I forgot about that, but that was another kind of like dark turn to nature. I mean, I
goats
think,
are so aggressive though. That's pretty accurate.
And I don't know, but I don't know if there's. I mean, I'm not familiar with any references to goats in like Japanese folklore or anything. So it probably was a Billy Goats Gruff.
I think it was a Billy Goats Gruff thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I saw one theory where it was like the Billy Goats Gruff were like how the troll is the mean one and the goats are good. In this one, the trolls, the Totoros are the nice ones, and the goat is the mean one.
Yeah.
So it's like,
what's so amazing about this movie is that all these foreshadowing that we're talking about and all this stuff, like how it just dovetails so beautifully, is that they kind of were made on the fly. I mean, like there wasn't.
They did Fireflies and this together. Him and Takata at the same time.
But it was also like there was no script. Like he would storyboard things, and then like if it didn't work with the storyboards, they would rip it up and try it again. And like very much.
That's why the poster stayed. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. But I mean, he said originally it was one little girl, and then they decided for story reasons that it was better with another little girl. But then that made it harder to tell the story. I need to delve into that.
I didn't understand that either. I did see where he said he didn't make it little boys because then he said it would have been even harder because that would have been him. It would have been because the mom was sort of based on his mom. He would have had a much harder time, and he wanted to maybe, I guess, disconnect.
Be able to step away a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I was like, okay, that makes sense.
I'd also.
I would like.
I think that's those elements of like the magical realism too, which is like I would say another like common theme in his films is like incorporating magic in a way that is not completely like otherworlding and like putting you into an entirely different world. Like I feel like Spirited Away is probably the most like going into a whole different kind of place full of spirits, but incorporating that into the real life is probably a way to both connect you to the story, but also, you're able to see it from, an outsider's point of view, as opposed to like it just being like Grave of the Fireflies. I mean, there's no magic in that at all. That's just like depression and sadness. And
what an incredible film. My God. God, that movie, like it's so sad, but you're just like, it is. And there's a great, I saw a couple of great little articles or videos about comparing the two and how they are very much alike, but the opposite of each other, where it's like everything gets, like I said, continuously worse in Grave of the Fireflies, and it was Takahata's
reference. And that's two boys
reference.
In Grave of the Fireflies, like two brothers, right?
No, it's a boy and a little sister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, little girl. Yeah.
But they're. I mean, just for those who haven't seen it, it's about two kids just trying to survive, and the immediate aftermath of World War II in Japan, and it was very, very, very harsh, and this is
watching I think it was
Hiroshima.
Interesting. Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
Hello, we Americans
that's
are big shits, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think. Like
well,
I think
war is the big shit.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
Well, I think that's like Takahata's reaction was, I want to talk about it and get it out there. And Miyazaki's was like, I want to create another world where that's better, that maybe we could be and exist in, which I thought was so interesting that they put them out together to watch, like the sad one first and then the happy one afterwards. Like, there's some hope.
Well, it also works like chronologically too. I feel like
Yes.
Didn't you say
yes,
that
absolutely.
Like makes a lot of like there's like the recovery, like the healing process of it, and like and that fits in with like nature, like healing itself and like growing itself like that, like giant camphor trees, like very like, oh my god, like it does feel like it's like from another world.
Yeah, of course, nature's a big thing in Miyazaki's film, obviously.
Yeah,
like, Mononoke, all these other one, everything. There's all this thing about like man versus nature,
Oh, it's his biggest theme is about
Princess Mononoke, especially. Yeah,
it's very much about environmentalism, and one of the scenes that is maybe I hadn't seen. Yeah, I hadn't seen used as much, and isn't as famous, but or constantly referenced in the movie is that Totoro gives them some acorns.
Yes.
And they plant them to make trees for their mother, so that when she does come home, she's going to see these beautiful trees, and then they don't sprout, which they planted them way too close together, but there was a reason for that.
I thought that too. I was like,
right. I'm like, oh, your oak trees, you kind of got to give them room. But then in the night, Totoro and his friends come and they magically make it sprout. And then it comes up to this gigantic tree. And then the last scene, the father hears something, but he doesn't look outside. So we never know if it's imaginary. Of course it's real. If the dad had just looked outside, he would have seen everything, but he didn't. And, but then the last scene is just them sitting in the tree, like blowing on some flutes, just like going, dude. And it's just
in the morning they wake up and there are like little sprouts and they're like, yay, it worked. Like they're like, oh, like
but I know, but I love that. I love that shot of them, because it really is about how the girls and Totoro are just in part of the same world. It's about the union of this secret world and the real world, where they're just casually happy in the moment. Again, in the moment, sitting in the tree and just blowing on their flutes, just not excited. Just
living life.
Living life. Yeah,
well, that's
what
also I liked when they get to the hospital and they're sitting in the tree and the mom thinks she sees them, and right away it's almost right away dismissed as fantasy, because the father goes, the corn, and like,
the corn says for
mom. For mom. So right away they're like for mom. Nope, I guess they were here. Like they immediately accepted. Well, I guess they were. They must be home soon. All right, whatever. Like just like no accepting. Yeah, just like accepting. Sure, the kids were here. Awesome. Great, we'll see them soon. And then again after the last scene in the credits, we see this continuation story. This lovely. You see the mom back.
Well, did you see the little baby? I was like, oh, like implied, like maybe they have a younger sibling.
Yes, that's why I was like, great. And then you see the kids playing, and there's even that great thing with like Kanta, where they sort of like are sticking tongues at each other at first, Kanta and Satsuki, but then he clearly cares. By the end, you show him like giving his umbrella, so other stuff. And then in the little in the credits, you see where there's a moment where like Kanta's friends are arguing.
It's like boys versus
friends,
girls, like
but
playing.
But Kanta's in the back, like sheepishly, sort of, because he clearly wants to be on Satsuki's side, but he wants to hang with his male friends. So he's kind of like, I'm not gonna say anything. It's so cute, so specific and so cute. So it's so great, love it. Oh, we lost your sound, Heidi. Are you Yeah, I lost you. Uh-oh. Yeah, we don't hear you. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Therese,
hello. I can
hear you now.
I hit a secret button. Button.
I've done that before too. I'm like, how did this happen? But,
I know. I was just going to say, there is not a single moment in this film that isn't emotionally perfect. Just emotionally, so it's perfect. It's a perfect movie. Lovely. I'll say 10 out of 10.
Absolutely.
I mean, 11 out of 10.
It's just, I mean, even like talking about Kanta, like when you go back and you think about like him like giving them the umbrella and then telling his mom that he just left it at home, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like it's such a like heartwarming moment. And then she comes to return it and the mom's like, oh, okay, like I see what's going on.
Like, okay,
here. Like,
my kid's not a brat.
Very,
okay,
like, considerate. Yeah, he's a very considerate like kid. So it's sweet.
Yeah.
it's very sweet. Just a lovely film, and like I can't wait to finish watching all of them. And I would love to do might be a long episode, but it's a sort of a Ghibli retrospective, maybe after seeing them all. So
Yeah,
like I said, I've got up to Spirited Away, and my next, because I'm going to go in order, is The Cat Returns. I still haven't seen Howl's. I still haven't seen Ponyo. Those are probably the only two big ones left out of like the last 10.
Ponyo. I mean, you
Yeah,
gotta
the last
have like
10.
food ready every time the mom makes ramen. I'm
Well,
like,
so
I need to
many
eat
of these
right
films
now.
have a lot of food. Oh my god, like
Yeah.
Spirited Away alone had so much food.
Oh my god, if you can't eat noodles
it's
after you see that
characters
movie.
food, the giant like daikon.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure.
cute.
So good. Awesome, just awesome.
Yeah. So and I'm listen, I I did see Spirited Away when it came out, and I went to the movie theater here at Kips Bay, RIP. But
Yeah, my
and
favorite
saw it.
theaters.
Yeah, movie theaters. Oh, that was so much fun back in the
Love
olden
Kips
days.
Bay,
Yeah.
That was a secret theater to go to that nobody went to.
Yeah. Well, maybe,
Mm.
we'll see. Maybe someday we'll be able to go to the movies again. But
Hopefully.
yeah, we will. Actually, we will if theaters survive. But that's a whole nother
People are going to theaters.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Now.
Did you say
not any near me? So.
But where you said that a little segue here, but like you wanted to go see Tenet. Where is it playing?
Nowhere near me, like 2.5 hours away in LA.
The only thing I wanted to see was Peninsula,
the closest place.
Train to Busan sequel. For some reason, is airing in theaters. I'm like, I kind of get Tenet, but Peninsula's in theater. I'm like, wouldn't that be the one that you would stream? It's like it's a Japanese film, and you're gonna bring it over and like put it in theaters. I'm like,
well, there's a ton of like conspiracy theories about how like studios were pushing a lot of like video, like direct to video for like female directors and like people of color directors. They were kind of like doing it like low-key, like, oh, it's out now, and they didn't get their release that they were kind of deserved.
Well, I'm hoping Peninsula gets streaming soon, because it's been out supposedly in theaters, again nowhere near here, for
are any theaters open near you guys? I don't think so, right? None.
No.
But, in New Jersey there are, because I just looked up showtimes for Peninsula, all in Jersey.
Yeah, well,
in Hudson County, or
it's still in theater. It's in Ridgefield, Garden State, Jersey.
Yeah,
Gardens.
So I guess you could do things in Jersey. Well, nice, go Jersey.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, listen, I'm kidding. Like, I'm happy.
New Jersey.
I'm happy for people who can go to see movie theaters, and we will again somewhere here in New York someday again. We'll have all the things that we had in the time before.
Oh, it's coming in November finally.
Okay.
So like the Train to Busan sequel potential is coming.
Oh, okay.
Streaming in November. Great. Okay,
so
I can hold out.
anyway, but I'm going to continue to rewatch, and let's definitely, maybe not for a while, because it's going to take a while to rewatch them, but
take some time to watch.
Take some time, because I have a feeling we're going to keep doing this live stream, Jimmy, and podcast.
But I also recommend to watch them. It's a lot of watching, but watch them both in the original Japanese.
Oh yeah,
and then in the dub, because it is interesting to watch the subtle differences. But just that's why I usually prefer to watch original with subtitles, because you're the original voice actors in the original intent. And as good as some of these American actors are, their intent might change just a bit. You know what I mean? A little bit. It might change it, here and there. But yeah.
Isn't that like the whole thing? Like when Dark first came out on Netflix, a lot of people were like, this show is great. And then like some people would watch it and it would auto do the English dub. And they're like, this show is awful. Like, it's not that good. And, like, there's like I watched it with the English dub because like I would be doing things and I'm like, okay, I can't like read the screen the whole time. And then I'm like, oh my God, this truly is like a bad dub. Like, I thought this was over. Like, I mean, a lot of films are like that. A lot of shows are like that on, like, they don't get, like a star-studded cast all the time
that happened with me with the zombie series Kingdom, where when I put it on, and all of a sudden I'm like, is this dubbed? And so I watched the first episode. After, like, oh no, I could change that. So then I went back. I was like, it makes a lot.
It's like a TV show, right? Kingdom.
Yeah, it's a 2
like
seasons. It's in the Joseon Korean period, and it's a zombie series, and it's fantastic. It's so
I've
good.
heard good
I recommend
things.
it. Yeah, really good. I watch it with the original. With the
I swear Jimmy has a time turner. How does he watch all this TV? Do you have like 3 or 4 going at once?
I only went back to work a month ago, or a month and a half ago. So I had 3 full months of doing nothing. So I literally watched
even during that time, I was like not watching. I feel like it was just like too much. Like I was just like, I I don't know, make some bread or something like yeast.
Oh, I cooked the time.
Sold
I cook
out
all
at my local market.
Yeah,
So it was
I
like,
cook a
just
lot,
need
so
to
I was
make
cooking a
food.
lot. But at the same time, I was watching, and that's how I watched Evil Dead, which started this whole thing.
I know.
Yeah,
Thank God
Evil
for
Dead
this.
series, so yeah.
That's, well, you know what? It all came together, and
Yeah.
I'm so glad we had that moment where you admitted
Yeah.
you had just seen it for the first
Yeah.
time, because that was the inspiration. And
Yeah.
as we always say, this is definitely one of the most fun things I do every week is do this. And so yeah, and again, I get to, I'm forced to watch these movies that I should have seen a long time ago. I couldn't have loved Totoro anymore, and it's already, like I said, it's right here. It's right here.
Therese, we got to get something that you've probably seen everything though, like me, but like you got to find some stuff that you haven't seen that maybe you feel you should have. Maybe that whole thing you feel you should have seen, like that, and we can maybe cover that.
List any film from like the 80s. I probably like any popular film.
Okay, awesome.
Any of those, like, but I don't think I've seen Back to the Future like in its completion.
Nice.
Ever.
That could be great one to do the trilogy.
That's a humiliator there, right?
That would be a great one.
I'm not ashamed. Like, honestly, I think about it and I'm like,
and they just put it on Netflix. I think they put the whole thing on Netflix, right?
They put something
the whole trilogy,
on.
Yeah. So that'd be a good thing to do the trilogy.
All right.
That'd be really great, actually.
I would. I mean, guess what? I've never seen Back to the Future 3 because I hate time travel. And Back to the Future 2 was like these people who write these theses about how Back to the Future 1. And I'm like, not for me. So I never saw it. As much as I love
3.
Christopher Lloyd. I'm a huge Christopher Lloyd fan.
Michael J. Fox, too. Come on now.
Did not.
But 3, of course,
perpetually looks 40 years old to me. Like, no matter what age he is, I'm like, you just look like.
But 3, of course, is, as people say, sort of relevant to the times because of. Do you know the plot of 3? Like what happened?
No.
I won't say anything. All right. It's like it's sort of relevant to the times.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
like 2 was in the Old West, and then 3 was another thing about.
Oh, okay. I was like,
a certain character.
Because one of them is not relevant.
3 is the Old West. 3 is the Old West one.
I'm sorry. 2 that I'm thinking of. 2 is the one where they're like.
Oh, I know it. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like.
Yeah.
Like a certain character becomes very popular and rich and all this other stuff, and like you're like, that seems very.
Well, I truly believe we're living in an alternate history. So
that's what I'm saying.
I'm to the Heidi, Jimmy, and Therese of that other timeline. Enjoy.
I hope you're living your best life.
Live your best life.
Yeah, two's a dystopian future.
Gray.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that would be, I think that'd be a great one to cover the trilogy.
All right. Well, we'll never run out of topics for this. Yeah, anyway, it's time to wrap this up.
Let's get out of here. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are growing and you don't ever want to miss. We're doing a lot more video stuff for the Comics Beat YouTube channel. So please subscribe so you don't miss any of the excitement. So until next time, I am Heidi MacDonald of The Beat, comicsbeat.com. You can find me on social media at Comics Ace. All social media, COMIXACE.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino of Comic News Insider. Again, the weekly podcast covering comics, film, animation, pop culture, comicnewsinsider.com. You can find me everywhere on social media, just at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO.
And I am Therese Lacson from Comics Beat and Nerdophiles, and you can find me everywhere as Vampire, BAMFPIRE.
I love your name. It's a great name. That's so great. It's so great.
Honestly, I have a mild letter dyslexia, so sometimes I can't spell things out. I'm gotta visualize it in my mind. It's a real big problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Thanks for those who are watching us live and on tape delay. And until next time, we're Comic Beat Insider.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Should we do a quick screenshot as well?
Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay.
Our usual screenshot there.
Are we still live?
No, we're done. We're not live. Oops, wait. We are still